From Anshe Sfard Beth El Emeth Congregation, it's time to take 10 Minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein.
Welcome to our discussion of the book of Vayikra, the book of Leviticus, the book of perfection. If we look at the books of the Torah, compare them one to another, we notice something interesting. Whereas the books of Shemot and Bamidbar tend to mix the narrative and the legal. The book of Shemot begins with a long narrative, the famous Exodus story, and then continues deeply into the laws of Mishpatim, very deep a section about laws. Truma, Tetzaveh, Vayakel Pekudei, the laws, the structures of the temple. That's Shemot. Bamidbar as well. We have the stories of the setting up of the camp, then the laws of the setting up of the camp. Who doesn't fit in the camp? We have the stories of the spies, stories of the rebellion of Korach. Each of these stories accompanied with its laws which are related to that story. However, in Vayikra, almost no stories at all. It's almost completely a book of laws. The rabbis called it Sifra, the book. Torah Kohanim, it's the laws of Kohanim. It's a book of laws, not primarily a book of stories. Although we'll get into the fact that there are stories, just very few, and why are those stories found as they are. If we look in the book of Shemot from the point of view of perfection, which book assumes perfection, doesn't assume perfection? If we look in the book of Bereshit, the book of Genesis, begins with man, the image of God, but then a fall, and then a rise, and then a fall again, the human condition, but nonetheless we're heading in a good direction, the creation of a family of Israel, a family of the 12 tribes. If we look in the book of Shemot, we begin at a very lowly state. The Jews are slaves, they are lost in hard labor, but they begin to rise and things begin to improve. And we sort of we underplay various sins of complaining. It's not emphasized as much as in Bamidbar. And everything is wonderful at Mount Sinai until finally the golden calf brings us down. And at the end of the book, we come back to a near perfection as we have a sanctuary with God in our midst. God calls out to the human being, Moshe Rabbeinu, the leader of the Jewish people, from the midst of our sanctuary. We're restored to a state of perfection. Book of Bamidbar also begins the notion of, wow, the Jewish people, unlike Shemot, where the Jewish people begin in slavery, Bamidbar begins with the notion of the Jewish people are encamped in perfect formation. Everything's marching forward. The history is marching forward. The Jewish people, with God at the center, are marching forward. It's beautiful. And then the crash, the mitonanim, the complainers, the meraglim, the spies, Korach, the rebellion, Pinchas, immorality. The entire structure falls apart until we're able to somehow resurrect it to some degree at the end of the book. But what about Vayikra? Does Vayikra posit a world of perfection or a world of imperfection? I'd like to suggest, despite the lack of stories in the book of Vayikra, the book of Vayikra draws the picture of a world of imperfection, but imperfection that can be dealt with. From the very beginning of Vayikra, yes, God calls out to Moshe. It's a continuation of Shemot in that sense that the Jewish people can reach this perfection where God can call out to the human being. But a human being is one who brings sacrifices. Because of unknown sins, when one brings an olah, and because of known sins, when one brings a chatat and an asham, their assumption is the human being does sin. The human being is in the need of atonement, of confessing one's sins, putting one's hands on the animal, confessing one's sins. Similar to the book of Devarim, Vayikra is filled with laws, but the assumption is that there is great imperfection. The laws of Tazriya Mitzorah, person is subject to impurity, bodily emissions, leprosy of the skin. Their human being is deeply flawed. The Arayot, twice in the book of Vayikra, we go through all of the lowliest things that a person could do, the acts of immorality, the acts of perversion described as the perversions of Egypt and of the lands of the Canaanites whom we are inheriting. Yom HaKippurim, the Day of Atonement, assumes that the Jewish people are tainted. We need elaborate ceremony and lots of fasting of lots of Jews in order to atone for our imperfections. In the context of that book, what are the two stories that are found in that book? One is a story that as we are about to inaugurate the Mishkan in the height of perfection and the human celebration of what's potentially ours, God in our midst, sons of Aaron do what they shouldn't do. And as a result, there is death in the middle of this great exaltation. Because Vayikra understands that despite the trappings of perfection, dreams of perfection, we are fundamentally flawed. And what's the other story? The worst thing a person could do, the Mekalel, the one who curses, the one who blasphemes. That's what's in this book. It speaks also of murder as well. This is a book that understands the human condition, makes no illusion that the human being is anywhere near perfection, and as such, near the end of the book, we have the klalot, the brachot, yes, the blessings if we do right, and the klalot, if, God forbid, we are not able to meet the mark, and God expects that we won't. Human being vacillates between two poles, as Rabbi Soloveitchik pointed out from Psalm 8. Basically, the human being is so flawed, why should we even be mentioned before God? But on the other hand, we're just a little less than God. Each of the books looks at the human being from a different perspective. Breshit, we could have been perfect, but boy have we sinned. Book of Shemot started off as slaves, but we can reach great heights. The book of Vayikra, we are fundamentally flawed, but we can strive for some holiness, and God can call out to us, and we can follow those laws. Bamidbar, you can set up a perfect society, but often it's destroyed, and only in the end can you march forward. And Dvarim, so we're warned to follow the laws. If we don't follow the laws, all will be lost. And reviewing, recapping all the imperfection of the Jewish people, all the sins of the Jewish people, the sin of the spies, the sin of the golden calf, reminding us of our imperfections, telling us the laws in that context of, watch out, try to keep these laws, we know it's difficult for you, and ending off on the note that I know you're going to fail. Torah understands the human condition. There are many laws, there are many expectations, 613 mitzvot, but ultimately, Vayikra is the book, Sifra is the book, and it understands that as much as we try to set up a holy community, a holy camp, holy synagogues, holy temples and sanctuaries, a holy land of Israel, with Jerusalem and the temple and God and the Torah at its center, we're ultimately just human beings. But there can be atonement, we can strive for the best, and in the end, Vayikra al Moshe, God can call to us. We can dedicate a temple with all our imperfections. We understand that we are nothing. Ma'enosh, what is human being? But at the same time, we strive, despite our imperfections, despite the fact that we know that we will sin, to continue to strive for holiness. Kedoshim to you, the book adjures us. Please, try to continue to strive for holiness. Thank you for joining us today at the Anshe Sfar Bethel Emet congregation here in Memphis, Tennessee. Join us again next week for our further discussions. And I want to thank Jason Lefkowitz for making today's presentation possible. And join us at our website at ASBEE.org. Thank you.
This has been 10 Minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein.